Hello, and welcome to today's Saratech Enablement Series. My name is Sarah Utsui, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator at Saratech, and I'll be your host today. Presenting today, we have Allison Redderson-Lear, who is a mechanical engineer at Saratech, and she'll be talking to you about using Femap API to write data to Microsoft Word. All right. Hi, Allison. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
Hey, Sarah. I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Saratech?
Yeah, so I've been with Saratech for about 6 years now, and I do mostly finite element analysis and Femap API.
Great. Well, we're excited to hear what you have to share with us today. Why don't you go ahead and share your agenda and take it away?
All right, sounds good. So this is the third in a three-part session on Femap API. In the first session, we talked about using Femap API to automate results visualization. In the second session, we talked about using Femap API to query results values. And in this session, we'll be using Femap API to write to Microsoft Word. And this session and the previous two sessions are on our YouTube channel as well. So today we'll be talking about how to add references in the Femap API programming window. We'll go over some general tips for working in Word, and we'll talk about creating subroutines and functions within a Femap API. So first off, to add a reference in the Femap API window, just right-click in that Femap API window and choose References, and it'll pop up this window for you that you see on the screen. You'll want to scroll through that list and find the library that you're looking to reference. In this case, we'll be using Microsoft Word, but you can also find things like Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Office, and any other accessible libraries you might have on your computer. So once we get to working with Word, we're going to need to start the application. And this can be in visible or hidden mode. Using that hidden mode is great if you need to just create files quickly, especially if you need to create many files. The only thing you need to watch out for when using the hidden mode with Word is that the user can't see it. So if there's Word open and they're not aware of it, then maybe if there's some issues with your program or something, you may end up with many iterations of Word running in the background and slowing the computer down. So you do want to very carefully debug anything that's starting any hidden application. We'll also need to create a new document to work with, and we'll be using the selection object to add content. So that's images and texts. We'll also be creating some subroutines and functions. You'll notice that the Femap API programming window includes a template that has a main subroutine, but we can add additional subroutines or functions if we want to, or we can reference them from other files. So now that we have that out of the way, let's go over to Femap here. Let me just minimize the PowerPoint slides here. There we go. So first of all, like I mentioned, we'll need to add a reference to the Word object library. So I will right-click, go down to References, and I'll find Microsoft Word in this list. I believe that's under M for Microsoft. And here we go, Microsoft Word Object Library. So I'll go ahead and check that box. If for some reason you don't see the library that you want to use, you can click this Browse button and find it in your program files or wherever the library is installed on your computer. So I'm going to click OK. And nothing obvious has changed in my window here. But now if I go to create some Word variables, like I said, we're going to need to start the application. So I'll create a Word app variable for that. You'll notice that as I start typing Word, then that's coming up in the autocomplete. If you don't have that reference added in there, you'll notice that as you type, these things aren't coming up in the autocomplete. So that should be a little flag to let you know that something is wrong. So I'll continue making my Word variables here. I want to start a new application for that. I'm also going to need some variables for the content that we want to add. So in the first session, we went over how to save an image of the graphics file. So now I'm going to make use of that image. Oops, I forgot an as in there. So I'll create a variable for the path to the image that we created. I also want to create a variable for a string so we can put some text in our Word document as well. I'll also want to create a variable for the element ID that I'm interested in and for the margin of safety that I'm interested in, and that we took care of in session 2. Basically we created an output set that had margin of safety data. So again, you can go and check those out on our YouTube channel if you want to. So first of all, I'll make the Word application visible because I do want to be able to see that file that we create. And I'll create a new document. So that's going to be Word doc as Word document. Okay, so now that I've added my new document, I can start putting things into it. So first of all, I want to break out a new subroutine. And I'm going to use this subroutine to pull in the image that we made in the previous session. But if you wanted to write a full subroutine here to maybe grab the graphics window as it is and save that, or make other modifications, you can do that as well. So to do that, to create a subroutine, I'm just going to say sub save gfx image, and I'm going to pass in this image path as string. So the image path that you see in the parentheses here, let me actually zoom in a little bit. This image path is an argument. So when you pass an argument into a subroutine or function, that argument can be passed either by value or by reference. I'm going to pass this one by reference. When I pass in an argument by reference, that means I'm passing in a reference to the variable. If I then modify this variable in this subroutine, so if I say image path equals C scratch contour.jpg. Now any argument that I pass in to the save graphics image subroutine will have this value. If I were to pass this by value instead, then if I made any changes to this image path, it would not be reflected anywhere else in the program. So that's just something to be aware of. So now back up here, I can say save gfx image, and I'll just pass in that pick path variable that I created. So like I said, if we wanted to, we could go back and maybe copy and paste the code that we made from session 2 in here. I want to keep this session relatively simple. I want to focus on what we're doing in Word. So I'm just going to hard code that path in there. Now I can put this into my Word document. So I'll say Word doc, and I need to use the active window because I do have Word open for this. Selection, like I mentioned, we'll be using this object to add content into the Word document. Use the inline shapes because I want to add this image, and finally add picture. And you can see from the autocomplete here, I do need a file name for my picture. And I do have a couple other optional arguments as well. The first one is if I want to insert a link to the file as well, and if I want to save the image with the document. So I'm going to give it pick path. I'll say false, and I'll say true. I do want to save that with the document. Okay, so now that should insert that image into my Word document. I'll just go ahead and click play to make sure I have everything good so far. And we see Word opened up here, and it does have the image that we saved from session 1. If you wanted to, you could also use the clipboard to copy and paste the image directly from Femap into the Word document. The Femap API does have methods that you can use to interact with the clipboard. The only thing you need to be careful with there is that if the user is also interacting with the clipboard, say if they're just using their computer like they do while your program is running, then they might sort of step on that. Let's say they're copying and pasting images as well, and maybe you end up with a copy of whatever image they copied and pasted instead of the graphics window like you wanted. So that's why I'm saving an image file, then inserting it into the Word document instead of using the clipboard. If you were to use this for many images, it might be good to do this in batches. So maybe you would create, depending on how many resources you want your program to use up, maybe you would create 100 images at a time, paste them into your Word document, and then go back and delete those image files. So that's another thing you might want to be aware of. So now that we have our image in there, we can create a function to get our margin of safety data. So down below our save graphics image, I'll create this function, get ms data, and I'll pass in an argument as the, let's say I want to get the margin of safety data for a specific element. I'll say worst elem as long. That's just going to be an element ID. And I'm going to give back a double, which is going to be the corresponding margin of safety data. So again, similar to up here where I pass that argument in by reference, I can pass this one in by value because I don't want to modify this element ID. And again, similarly, we can go back to session 2 and maybe copy and paste that code in here. For simplicity, I'm just going to hard code a value in there. So I'll say get ms data equals 0.123. So now when I call this function, it's going to return this 0.123 value. So back up here, I'll say EID, that's my element ID, equals 1. Then I'll call my function, so get ms data, and I'll pass in that EID variable. And now I need to set this equal to the variable that I created for my margin of safety. So I'll say EMS equals get ms data for that element ID. So now that I have that, I can start putting my string together. So ms string equals, I'll say the minimum margin of safety occurs at element. And now I want to do what's called concatenating strings together. To do that, I'm going to use the ampersand. And I need to convert my element ID to a string so I can put those together. So I'll use the Visual Basic convert string method to convert that element ID, another ampersand. And as usual, remember to add trailing spaces when you want to get that element ID in there. Just because the ampersand character is not going to add any spaces or formatting for you. So you do need to remember to put that in yourself. Next, I'll say which has an ms of another space. And you can see I'm kind of getting to the edge of this API window, so I can use a continuation character, which just tells the API to continue on to the next line. So I'll just use an underscore to do that. Another ampersand. And this time I want to convert my margin number to a string. And finally, I will add a period at the end of the sentence. So now that I have my string, I want to check to make sure that is going to come out the way I want it. So I'm going to use the Femap message to print that out into the Femap message window. Just in case anything goes wrong, I don't want to be tripping over what's going on in Word. So I'm just going to hit play here. And you can see down here in the message folder, or in the message window, we have that minimum margin of safety occurs at element 1, which has an MS of 0.123. So that looks good. Again, we still have our image here. I don't need to save that. So I'll just comment this out, and we can start putting it into our Word document. So Word doc, again, the active window selection. This time we're going to use the text, and we'll set that equal to MS string. So I'll go ahead and click play here. Go over to my Word document, and we can see our images here, and the sentence that we wrote is here as well. So now that we've put our Word document together, maybe we want to iterate over this multiple times, maybe we need to pull in data from multiple output sets. Again, we can go back to session 2 for that kind of thing. Session 1 was grabbing this image. And let me go back to my PowerPoint slides here. So the notable takeaways from this are that Femap API can be used to rapidly create or edit Microsoft Office files. Today we looked at Microsoft Word, but you can also interact with Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, etc. And the Femap API can interoperate with other API libraries. So you saw in this case, we added a reference to the Microsoft Word library. Many programs do have accessible libraries that you can use, including Microsoft Office. So anything you can find in that list or browse to in that references window, you can interact with the Femap API. If you want a copy of the code that we use to write during this session, it'll be available via a link. I believe Sarah will post it in the chat for the GoToWebinar, and it'll be in the YouTube description once this is up on YouTube. If you do need additional help with API, the custom tools in Femap are a great place to start. These are relatively simple APIs that are shipped with Femap. You can find them in the program files directory wherever Femap is installed. And you're free to modify those and use them how you see fit. We also do have API training available for our customers. We also have mentoring available, as well as enablement sessions like this and YouTube videos on our YouTube channel. Are there any questions?
The first question is, what are the benefits of using API over the report generator in the tools menu?
So that's a great question. Let me go back to Femap for this one. If you're not aware, you do have the report generator that comes with Femap, and this is just going to spit out some information about your model into a Word document. Let me go over to that. So you can see it gets you a table of contents, some information about the elements and nodes in your model, and just a basic screenshot. That can be very useful, but being able to put this together yourself gives you a lot more freedom in creating a format that works for you or using an existing format that you already have, as well as pulling out those output sets and output data that might be important for your analysis report.
Great. The next question we have is, how do I reference a function or subroutine from another file?
So that's a great question. Let me pop open a new macro really quick. So at the top of your program, you just want to add a comment, the £, the keyword uses, and then it'll have you browse to a file that you want to reference. So I'm going to reference this hello world, and it's going to automatically populate that path up there. Now I will quickly open that file to make sure I know what the function name is called. And I'll drag that over here. So you can see I just have one simple subroutine called say hello, and it just prints hello world out into the message window. If I want to call that from this API, I can just say hello. I'll click play. You can see down in the message window, we have our hello world.
Very cool. So the last question that we have right now is, can I reference the Femap API from Microsoft Office macro?
Yeah, so if you're already familiar with writing Excel macros or Word macros and stuff like that, very similar to how we added a reference to the Microsoft Word library in the Femap API window, you would instead add a reference to the Femap library, and that's going to be in your Femap installation directory. Let me open that up real quick here. So that's going to be program files, Siemens 2020.2. And femap.exe, that's your Femap program. The library that you want to reference is going to be femap.dll in that folder.
Great. It looks like that's all the questions that we have for today. If you are ready to take it to the next level, Saratech offers much more than just software. We have a wide variety of options for training, services, and 3D printers. So if you have any questions about that, you can email us at marketing@saratech.com. Like we mentioned earlier, we'll be posting this video on our YouTube channel. Also, sessions 1 and 2 are on there. So please feel free to visit us there and pass it along to your colleagues. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter for upcoming webinar dates and topics. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you, Allison, and have a great day.
Thanks for checking out our channel. If you like what you saw, make sure to like and subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any new videos. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter for the latest engineering news and information. And to see all of our upcoming events, please visit our website at saratech.com/events.